That was an extract from a song released by a band called My Bloody Valentine in 1991. The song was titled Soon, and it was my first exposure to this specific sound. I still remember being so wowed by the chords, vocal style, and guitar tone. No other genre had really taken me so abruptly before, and I wanted to hear more. So, I took my first steps down the rabbit hole. My Bloody Valentine had 3 albums, Loveless, MVB, and Isn't Anything. Isn't Anything, 1988, solidified the sound and was a big release that opened up people's eyes to a whole new world of possibilities. Loveless, 1991, was the breakthrough. MVB, the magnum opus, released in 2013. Eventually, I began to realize how prolific they were, and why the 4-piece from Dublin, Ireland were eventually one of the first bands in the world to be labelled under the umbrella of shoegaze. Led by Kevin Shields, he paved the way for the genre to get its own unique stylistic foothold, as well as transforming future approaches to songwriting, influencing many bands to come. But as good as MVB is, this isn't a video about them. It's about the genre of shoegaze. What is shoegaze? Shoegaze is a 90s genre. It was coined because the performers of the genre would stand dead on stage during their performances, staring at their feet. Hence the term shoegazers ensued. It started in England and Ireland, and it can be best described by the loud ambience of thick guitars, creating the classic term wall of sound. According to the geniuses down at Rate Your Music, there are 2 golden eras for shoegaze. The original inception of the genre, and then the romanticized resurgence in the last 5 to 6 years. Originally, the genre is a progression on many noise-driven bands, such as the Sonic Youth and the Sex Pistols. Along with emo, slowcore, post-rock, and lo-fi rock, the equally morbid movements of the American sister genres, which sonically defined the 90s, these subsequent youth counter movements challenged the bright, poppy, and synthy sounds of the 80s, making shoegaze more, for me, personally prolific, as it challenged the accessibility of rock and redefined ideas such as structure, ambience, dynamics, mood, melody, and production, and so much more. Shoegaze is the perfect marriage of ambience and pop. That was Fall by Ocean. Ocean is a band that barely made it into the revivalist 2010s shoegaze era. They share similar aesthetic styles to Slowdive, but don't suffer from the muddy and more melancholic moods that age Slowdive. One element that differentiates Slowdive from Ocean is the bass player. It seems he holds a very large presence in the band, with a strong, chorusy post-punk style, which is very sick. There's not much to say about this band that really hasn't been said before, but they just write great songs, so I couldn't leave them out. Speaking of Slowdive, that was Allison, a great song by them. Slowdive themselves are the biggest band that has explored the richer, dreamier, and spacey side of shoegaze, all the while balancing a pop element that is integral to their sound. They achieve this through their use of phaser, reverb, delay, which has the effect of filling out their soundscape. Their heavy mood, despite not really being saturated with fuzz, overdrive or distortion, allows them to retain a very melancholy atmosphere. It's really driven in by the sustained and layered vocals that sit ever so slightly above their washed out and muddy mix. Another element of Slowdive that truly differentiates them from other shoegaze bands is their drumming. Simon Scott, the drummer of Slowdive, has a big presence in the band, and he really helps bring the dynamics of Slowdive to the next level, accentuating the swells of guitar that drives the psychedelic / pop elements of the specific style of shoegaze to be the best they can be. Slowdive is a great band and has a big place in my heart. This is Baby's Breath by Love Lays Crushing. Love Lays Crushing is a truly ethereal and ambient band that really expand upon the ideas of Kevin Shields. As well as their great songwriting, their mixing and production is at a very high standard. As rich and full-sounding as their mixes are, they are clear and perfectly balanced. The high-pitched sustained whiny guitar sits nicely over the static-sounding or synthy washed-out guitars, to which the vocals are squeezed somewhere in the middle. I think Love Lays Crushing is one of the best bands from the 90s era, as they took something that was already done and they made it their own. That was There Is No Such Thing as Black Orchids by Lilies. It demonstrates the influence and prowess of Loveless even before the resurgence of the genre. Apart from the awful album cover, there are only a really few good listens on this album, as stylistically they don't stray further from the few tropes of Loveless, like heavy and bendy guitars and distant male vocals. Though dynamically they have a larger range of more explosive and quieter moments compared to Loveless. But these songs tend to suffer from less interesting song construction and harmonic choices. This band does not really take an identity of their own, but still have written a fair few good songs, as well as being a testament to the shoegaze genre. The song we're listening to right now is Empty Words by Bowery Electric. Bowery Electric can be defined by two intrinsic elements, drone and drums. A less accessible subgenre of shoegaze, it focuses more on the ambience. It uses ringing, endless distorted synth and guitars that are dark and seem all squashed together in a very small low-mid frequency band range. Their vocals sit back and contribute as much to the mix as any other instrument, except one, the drums. Bowery Electric's use of drums gives them a distinct sound from most ambient / shoegaze groups. Their drums sit right at the front, and they aren't shy about experimenting with different types of tones, from sustained no-T snares to dead snares to hardly hit hi-hats to washed out rides. These blends of choices make Bowery Electric unique from pretty much every other group. This is What Are You Doing to Me by Duster. This is a great shoegaze song. It combines lo-fi rock, a sound typically associated with Duster, and it combines it seamlessly with shoegaze elements. Duster is typically not a shoegaze band, but I'll literally take any chance to mention them because they are great. This shows their range and flexibility as musicians. I won't discuss many of the elements of this song because I want to leave it up to you to go listen to them yourself. This concludes the retrospective section of this video.
Roland Howard played a Jaguar, and it was the shape, the shape, because I wanted that shape, but I I actually had seen a jazz master in Ireland, until 88, really, A friend of mine, Bill Carey, he basically, when Creation Records had decided they wanted to make a record with us. Anyway, my friend Bill, this was like, you got to use my guitars, and one of them was a jazz master. It was a 64, a red 64, and it just happened that the tremolo one was set. Some of them they can all be a bit different, but his one was just set that it was kind of unusually high, just by pure luck. And I picked it up and started to kind of go, oh, this is cool, And literally, the first song I ever did using it was a song from the Made Me Realize EP called Thorn. That was the first hour I discovered it, and then in this 2 hours later I did a song called Slow, which was the first time I did that melted kind of effect. I put it through a reverse reverb and then thought, that sounds good, and I thought, oh, turn the tone down. I thought, wow, it sounds totally like some weird tape sort of copy of a copy of a copy, and then it was playing fast and started bending the tremolo arm and it started going. It all happened in like one afternoon, and I was like, wow, this guitar, I've never come across anything that can do that,
As I said before, shoegaze genre can be split into two eras: the 90s era that we just discussed and the revitalization period. As well as this video being an exploration of the genre, I also had the intention to understand why the revival seems to be taking place. And why now especially? And I think to understand this question, we must ask what elements of shoegaze catch people's ears, and why. Here's some contemporary examples. I was going to individually break down all these songs, but I've realized that they're all extremely similar to one another. That is not a bad thing, but they've all condensed shoegaze motifs into a pop indie structure with great dynamics, chorusy and saturated chord progressions, and melodies that sit perfectly under the mix. So to conclude, I think we're in a similar period to the 90s, where a rejection of previous styles is parallel to the contemporary setting of bland pop of the 2000s, giving rise to a resurgence of jangle pop, trap, and rap. It has caused an irritation of the mind of the average shoegazer, and as well, simultaneously, I think because of all the millennials and Gen Zs are drawing from their romanticized and dislocated nostalgic views of the 90s, we've seamlessly distanced ourselves with enough time to have this genre be considered cool, forgotten, and retro. Despite this, it's still a good genre, and it's just interesting to see the modern musical movement happening. Thanks for watching.